and sing it one and all. Join in the chorus, North Melbourne's on the ball. Good old North Melbourne, they're champions, you'll agree. North Melbourne is the team that plays to win for you and me.
Welcome back, Shimboners. On today's podcast, boy, do we have a big one. Lots to unpack after a whirlwind week in the footy media. A lot of chat around North and specific players. We've got media bans, big-time suspensions. And just to cap that off, we've got a big clash Thursday night prime time against the arch rival Essendon. Huge pod, riding solo this week. Chiefs in New Zealand, the Frogs in Melbourne for tomorrow night's footy. So thank you for coming here to unpack it all with me. Look forward to chatting with you guys. So let's start with the biggest news that has hit our desk and some positive news that we've seen today with big Finnbar debuting tomorrow night. Finnbar Maley coming in. A lot of supporters, myself included, have been crying out to see this guy get a go. So for those who aren't overly familiar, it's his second year on the list. He came to us as a 19, 20-year-old rookie selection from the Bull Ants from memory. He crashes packs. He's aerially dominant, bit shaky on some of his set shot kicking, but so far this year looks to have tidied that up a little bit, but really stoked to see him get a go, and he's a cult figure. I remember the first podcast I ever did, I said he'll be a cult figure, and pretty much that's come true, and you see him around the group in the content the club puts out. They all love him. He's a bit of a weird cat, but we love that about him, and really excited to see what he can bring. So after what's been a full-on week in the media, some positive news to see, and we'll also go through team selection in a bit more detail later on. But let's start with the big news for the week with the Paul Curtis suspension. So he got 3 weeks for a tackle that resulted in Josh Sin being suspended. And when we did the review pod, Frog and I spoke about it, and we were really hopeful that there would be some common sense. Unfortunately, as we've become way too accustomed to in today's AFL with the suits and morons running the league, there's no common sense applied. So he had a 3-week suspension. He's gone to challenge it to the tribunal, and they've set up, for those who didn't read it, it's worth reading some of the quotes shared by David Zeta, because clearly the people, I know the lawyers there are to protest and to support the 3-match ban, but some of the expectations of players these days are just ridiculous. Like, from all reports, from what I've read, like, would they expect him to put a pillow down? Like, you can see in the vision, PC swings his legs to try and brace the contact. I think a part of it that I would have loved the club to have put forward was that Josh Sin actually dove forward as well. He was looking to try and get a free kick out of it. His knees hit the ground and it propels his body forward. And unfortunately, he was concussed. But the AFL have got 2 choices. They either need to have a little bit more wriggle room to not have it to be a 3-match ban, or they need to come out and just say any tackle or bump that results in concussion is going to be 3 weeks, because it's destroying the fabric of the game, and the game is pretty much dead from what we grew up loving and have come to enjoy watching every week, because Paul had no intent to hurt. It was a great chase, and 3 weeks plus should be reserved for incidents where there is a distinct intention to hurt another player. So if I'm just going to compare it quickly to the Dan Houston one, where he got 2 weeks where he lined him up and made contact with the head in a bump, that is a lot more deliberate than the Paul Curtis one, which is incidental. And the AFL are petrified of getting lawsuits. There was some great chat on SEN this morning from some listeners calling in, a bit of feedback, which was great. And then they made some good points as well, that where are we going to go from here? Because the bump's pretty much gone. Like, players are too scared to bump. We're going to get to a stage where it's going to be touch footy. And what happens with the specky next? Like, that's one of the best parts of AFL football, is the hangers, the speckies. And it's going to get to the point where if you take a specky and you make accidental head contact, then where do we draw the line? Like, obviously, players come into play AFL knowing that it's a contact sport. And unfortunately, when it's played at a high octane pace like our great game is, there's going to be accidents that happen. So I'm really concerned about where this is going. And Paul Curtis, Luke Parker, what a man, sharing it on Instagram that come down and see our game of touch footy this Thursday night, because a lot of the boys did share stuff on Instagram, which was good to see get around PC, because it was ridiculous. Fans are left fuming, and I sort of tried to take myself out of it a little bit because the blue and white tinted glasses, but reading the comments from all neutral supporters, I didn't see anyone try and back up the AFL's decision and justify it, regardless of even the Port supporters, who are as one-eyed as any supporter base. They were sort of dumbfounded that it could be 3 weeks, and the club's decision to start off their argument saying to reduce it to 1, like, that was really frustrating as well. You wouldn't see your Carltons, your Collingwoods do that. They'd be going in saying, no, this should be nothing, and thrown out pretty quick. So really disappointing. And then the worst part of it all is this is the second time it's happened to us this year, with the Jackson Archer one. Still unbelievable that got 3 weeks. But then you compare that to the Noah Bolter situation, and 4 weeks for him. Like, what example are we setting that you can accidentally get your legs taken out like Arch, or apply a perfect tackle that unfortunately has an ill result with PC, and that gets 3 weeks, and then Noah Bolter with his vicious assault gets an extra week. So it's not adding up at the moment. And then I found it really interesting, the club quotes today coming out that they chose not to appeal as of the short turnaround, and they didn't think they'd win. Well, we've got to think about the other 2 games as well. Like, obviously he was gonna miss Thursday night's clash regardless, but I think it was important, whether we thought we'd win or not, we had to challenge just for the state of AFL football and to send a message, because it's getting ridiculous. The suspensions for everything these days, and the fabric of our game is slowly diluting, and it's really unfortunate to see as a supporter. But really disappointed for PC, and it's probably going to cost him an All-Australian jacket as well, because he and Jack Higgins, clearly the 2 best small forwards this year, looking at the Coleman medal as well. And more importantly than that, for individual awards, he was our best player probably so far this year. He, Parker and Sherry, for mine, are probably the top 3 performers of the season so far. So not only does it hurt his individual awards, but it also hurts us as a team, because he was really consistent. He'd gone 2s and 3s all year. He was really reliable. You could book him in for a couple of goals, and leading, I think he was top 5 in the league for tackles inside 50 as well. So not only his offensive stuff, but his defensive stuff's really going to be missed. And we'll get to team selection with who's replaced him a bit later on, but that's sort of baffled me a little bit as well. But the next one is really touchy. So Kane Corns is bang in the gun for me. So we've brought media straight forward because supporters want to hear our thoughts. I've been dying to talk about this. Had a bit of interaction with a lot of supporters on social media. Made a couple of posts on X and Instagram about it, which has got the Port Nuffies rolled up. But Kane Corns, I don't mind him, right? So I enjoy that he doesn't mind calling things out, but there's a point that you don't cross. And he's been hot on North, and it's all started at First Up, whatever his show is on AFL.com, where he was complaining about the umpires, but didn't show any footage of any other games outside of Port, and didn't show any footage of the Charlie Comben non-free or any of the frees that went against North that were touchy. He was very specific on the Port Adelaide ones that he felt that they deserved. And then his ridiculous defensive JHF. So he was staunch in that. He wouldn't put words to his quotes. He was saying that he'd spoken to the JHF camp and that some of the stuff that Jai was saying was downright disrespectful. If you're going to come out strong like that, be prepared to back it up. And he usually is. But we all know what he gets like in front of his little baby boy, Jason, who had obviously come crying to Kane about what had happened. So for those who aren't fully across what he'd said, I'll just summarise some of it. So he was having a crack at Jai, first of all. We'll get to Sheasel next. But Jai about not being able to be a captain and play in his own midfield. So let's have a look at Kane's mob, Port Adelaide. So that captain is Connor Rosie. Now, whereabouts is he playing? Oh, hang on, that's right. He's playing at half back because he was getting tagged and couldn't get a kick. So very strange comments there from Kane. And the next one about Harry Sheasel was just ridiculous. Like, I understand his points that he made early about Sheasel not getting enough score involvements and not getting enough ball in front of centre, and that's fine. Like, I'm sure a lot of supporters are aware that he's not having the same impact as he did in his first 2 years, but let's also bring up the fact that that's an incredibly high standard because he's played probably the best first 50 games out of anyone in the history of the competition. I mean, he's right up there with Dacos stats-wise after his first 50 and playing in a much lesser side, so let's just get that out of the way first. But the media love to cry about mental health, and I think it's important as well. I don't want to discredit the mental health of players, and in today's world, there's so many sports shows dissecting the game that they all try and up themselves with more and more ludicrous statements. But to come out and, first of all, to create a slogan, Sheezy Ball, playing on Harry Sheasel's name, I just thought that was cross the line. And then we've seen Todd Viney and Alistair Clarkson come out and do a press conference today talking about how they've put a ban on Kane Corns and any media platform he's associated with. The plan was to have Kane and Hodgie come down and interview Clarko pre-game. That's no longer happening. Well, the interview is happening, just no longer with Kane involved. So I've seen a lot of differing opinions on this, a lot of opposition supporters saying that maybe it's a bit soft, but I've also seen a lot saying good on North and that Kane is nothing but a vindictive bully and to stand up for things that have gone too far. And I think it's a line in the sand moment of our club has been way too accepting of on-field performance being poor and happy not to win, just to be close. But I think it's also a line in the sand moment that we've been for far too long quiet about stuff that's been coming out about our club. Now, I like it. I like it a lot. So really happy to see that and someone stand up for the club. From the club. We don't hear much from the president or the CEO. Whether it's their place or not to comment about that is a conversation for a different day. But for Todd Viney to come out today and be strong with those comments, I was a big fan of as well. So really interesting to hear what he had to say. And for those who haven't seen it, I highly recommend watching it. But back to the Sheasel comments that Kane made. I was really happy that the following night Dale Thomas was really strong on it. Luke Hodge, who he just itches for a fight with Kane anyway, particularly when it's around North, and his former coach Alistair Clarkson. They were really strong on it as well. And I just thought, if you're going to have a crack at specific players, I wouldn't be at all picking him. Like, if there's players that are underperforming at North, although Harry's not living up to his ridiculous high standards, there's other players that you'd potentially target that aren't 21-year-old, 50 games played kids. So I was happy to see those two media members step in as well. But at the end of the day, Kane, he plays a role. We've all got to be accepting of that. He's all about clicks. He's all about views. And the winner at the end of the day out of all this is Channel 7, because obviously they compete with Fox. Both have different calls going, and you can guarantee now that any man and his dog with all this is going to tune in to 7 to hear what Kane has to say about North, and he's going to be like a dog with a bone. So the biggest thing for me is we've just got to shut him up, and there's only one way to do that: perform on field. We go out there tomorrow night, we bring the competitive, unrelenting football that we saw for the last three quarters against Port, and he won't have a choice. He'll have to say something positive, or better yet, say nothing at all. So I've got no issue if he comes out and slams us if we bring the same performance that we've seen at times during the year. If we're not good enough against Port, against Essendon, a team that is by no means flying, then we've only got ourselves to blame. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on the Kane Corn stuff. Like, we know the role he wants to play. It's all about clicks. 7 would be happy with him. SEN, his Fireball program, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. That's going to get huge numbers with David King this Friday. Look forward to hearing what Kingy's got in rebuttal. He put up a post today defending Shees, and that'll no doubt be going. But just while we're there about easy ball off the half-back, he's talking about Shees' game on the weekend, 4 kick-ins. He had 4 kick-ins out of 30-odd disposals, so that's irrelevant. Yet he's pretty quick to choose and not talk about Connor Rosie, who's one of his beloved boys, who's off half-back, getting a lot of handball receives and kick-ins as well. So we all know he cherry-picks stats. We all know that he's like a dog with a bone. He's looking for clicks. He's looking for headlines. He's achieved that. But I'm glad that the club said, well, if you want to be like this, we're not going to have anything involvement with you. And it's all for criticism, but when it goes too far and he gets personal about our players, I'm glad to see our club standing up for the people that we love, the supporters, and drawing a line in the sand there. But yeah, I've waffled on a little bit long about it, but it was something that really, really annoyed me during the week, and he will triple down, not double down, he will triple down if we do not show up. And so it's really important that we back up our words on the field now. So let's get to our preview of the Essendon game. First of all, another milestone game. Caleb Daniel playing his 200th game. The big thing I want to see this week, we saw Luke Parker in game 300 lead the way. He was magnificent. Best on ground for the Frog and I last week in the Basti votes. So CD not flying at all, hasn't hit the heights we'd hoped. Big celebration game for him. Let's hope he can bring back some aspect of his form. More importantly, just be safe with the ball in hand and hungry defensively. So looking at the last time we played the Bombers, it was round 10 last year. We lost 106 to 66 with our best players being Harry Sheasel had 32 disposals, and a man who has been talked about a lot this week, Luke Davies-Uniacke, had 27 and 2 goals. So let's have a look at the team changes. Usually we predict our team changes, but this week, due to our Thursday night clash and when we're recording, we've got live team reactions. So we'll start with our opponents, Essendon. Dylan Shield is outmanaged, replaced in the side by Elijah Sardis, who, for those who don't know a lot about him, he was a top 5 pick in the same draft as the Sheasel Wardlaw. He was directly after them. Then let's have a look at the mighty Kangas. So George Wardlaw, we haven't even spoken about George yet. He's unfortunately missing 5-day break, plus an interstate trip the week before. Don't mind that. Let's be cautious. It's a marathon, not a sprint. If he comes in, he also had a corky as well. So if he comes in slightly underdone and does another hamstring or another big injury, then we're saying to the club, why did you bother playing him? So I don't mind the cautious approach there. PC out as well, obviously with the suspension we touched on earlier, and Darcy Tucker omitted, which I was pretty strong on saying that he shouldn't play for North again after his 0 disposal game. And actually, it's not just that individual game. I think we're past a good depth player like him. We need to be moving past him if we're to progress to where we want to be. And replacing them, Bailey Scott comes in. Happy to see him back in. Will Phil, really pumped to see him in to the midfield rotation. And, of course, Finnbar, the debutant as well. So, initial thoughts on the team are, I was surprised Eddie Ford didn't come in. I think he is pretty much a like-for-like for Paul Curtis in terms of how they play. Obviously, he's not quite at the level of PC, who's taken the next step, but I think he has the X factor. He can take a clunk for someone his size. He can buzz around, creates a bit of chaos. So I was surprised that we've brought in a tall for PC. It leaves us a little bit slow, forward of 50, just having a look. Like outside of Constante, I think it puts a lot of pressure on Cam Zurha to apply that forward 50 pressure that we'd seen PC. And he's shown it in patches. But I'm a staunch defender of Cam, and regular listeners of this podcast will know that. But at the point he's in at his career, with the money he's on, we need to see at least the effort and the defensive work more consistently. I think it's slowly gotten back into his game this year. He's really hitting contests hard, putting his body on the line and chasing a lot better. But we need a 4-quarter defensive effort from him. And with that, we'll bring the offensive reward. So the second half last week, he really got involved, helped us surge against the power. But I think his defensive game kickstarts his offensive game, and he can be a real barometer for us. So I'm going to keep a close eye on Cam this Thursday night. I love the bloke, love the player that he is. So really hoping he can bring it this Thursday night. Then defensively, so we'll get to the matchup soon, but Caddy, Wright and Langford, the three sort of tools for Essendon. I was surprised we didn't bring Aiden Corey in. I know he only just got dropped and he hasn't played any VFL football, but I was shocked to see him not come back in for the likely matchup against Kyle Langford. He played on him last year and did a fantastic job. I think he almost kept him goalless, and I think Bailey Scott might have turned it over and kicked it to him, and Corey was furious because he'd basically held him disposalless as well. So I thought that they might bring him in just for matchups, but they've elected to bring in just play the two key defenders as well. So that'll be an interesting look for us in a minute when we get to the matchups. But really interesting. Glad to see Will fill in. I think with George unfortunately missing, we know what he brings defensively. Hopefully he can get more hands on the footy, because I still think he's a really underrated user of the football. He's tough. He'll get clearances. He'll put his nose in the trough. His handballing is underrated, in my opinion, because he creates space for his teammates. He handballs it to positions where they'll be in a better position, rather than what we see too much in our current team of handballing either A, behind them, or B, when they're standing still. So happy to see him back in. And then Scott, well, he'll run hard all day, and I think he really needs to perform. He's missed 3 weeks. Unfortunately, only played 1 game in the reserves due to scheduling, but it's really on him now. He's part of the leadership group last year, obviously a restricted group this year, so the onus is on him to be part of the change, and unfortunately he's regressed the last 2 years, so hopefully that's the kick up the arse that he needs, and he comes back and can use the footy a little bit better, because you can't question his work ethic. Right, let's get into matchups. So we'll start, as we always do, in the midfield. That's where the game's won and lost. So looking at the ruck battle, Tristan Sherry, I think he's been magnificent the last couple of weeks, really working past that niggle that he's been playing with. So he goes up against his old master in Todd Goldstein, former Shimboner. We all love Goldie, but not Thursday night. It's worth noting, I think Goldie's 35 now, so he was really only there for depth. They've had Sam Draper out with an Achilles and Nick Bryan with an ACL, so Goldie will pretty much play the rest of the year unless they have mid-season draft selection in the ruck. So Big X, he's got to bring that physicality that we know he will. North fans will remember that Goldie never really played well against a physical ruckman. He did really well against the similar like players to him, and even the bash and crash ones he could get on the spread, but I think X is a really good athlete, so you should be able to bash him up in the middle, and then or fairly of course, and then really hurt him on the spread, because we know Goldie will work hard, but if X can get down forward and get those dukes up and challenge him defensively, that's what I'd really like to see. Looking at the midfield battle, so obviously LDU, really big watch on him this week. I think he's been really quiet since signing the contract. If you were just an observer of a neutral checking the stats, you would have looked and thought, gee, he's played well. He had 25, kicked a goal. I think he had 10 clearances as well, but it's the impact of those disposals, I think all North fans would agree, wasn't what we needed last week, unfortunately, and when the game was there to be won, he went quiet, along with Tommy Powell, who I'm a big advocate for, but he's unfortunately been ducking in and out of games. So then we'll see Shees hopefully spend a little bit of time in there. Tommy Powell, I've just mentioned, Will Phil, and then Jai. I'd like to see a statement and see Jai in the middle for the first centre bounce at least. I mean, he's been shockingly out of form, unfortunately making too many costly turnovers, but I think you've got in a week that's been so scrutinised by the media, I'd love to see him in there in the first centre bounce, flying the flag for the club. Whether they'll do that or not, who knows. Luke Parker as well will spend plenty of time through there as our best mid so far this year, in my opinion. Then the Bombers, for God's sake, there has to be some time put into Zach Merritt, because the last few times we've played him, he has tore us a new one. He's one of the best players in the competition. He's really damaging by foot if you give him too much space. In past encounters, we've given him way too much space, and he's torn the game apart early. And that's another thing. We've got to show up in the first quarter. I've had a gutful of this. Good efforts in the second quarter. We need to show up from the first bounce, fired up and ready to compete. We can't concede 7 goals again in the first quarter. It's just not good enough, especially against this Essendon side that I don't think are that great on paper. So Sam Durham as well, he's another hard head for them. Elijah Sardis has barely proven himself. Will Setterfield, he's a bit of a hack by foot, but in and under sort of player. So I think we can get them on the spread. Ben Hobbs will spend a bit of time through there. So it's not like we're playing a top 5, top 10 midfield. And midfield is where we've gone so heavily in the draft. It's one of our big strengths. So my big watch, and I think the onus, has got to be on the midfield group this week. You've just got to win. We've got the better ruckman, the better midfield group. You've got to win the clearance battle. And we've got to have valued clearances too. None of this handballing back, then sort of snap, dump, kick that gets to 60 out and it's too easy to rebound on turnover. It's got to be out the front, handball chains. That's why I like Will Phil in there. He won't panic. He'll handball to a teammate and get him into better space. Shoulders forward, as the coaches love to say. Bursting inside, and we can get it deep to that sort of dangerous 20 metres out to a Nick Larkey or to Big Finnbar coming over the top of Ben Mackay taking a big hanger. So, the midfield is on watch for me. The onus is on them. It's got to start with them. So let's have a look at the defensive matchups as well. So 2 metre Peter Wright, he's gone missing for a while there from the Essendon side, but he comes back in. He's been in good form, kicked 5 against the Eagles and then a couple on Anzac Day in conditions that weren't great for key forwards. So he's feeling good about himself. He's got a pretty good record against us too. So the only matchup we can really go there in terms of height is Charlie Comben. So Chom defensively, good job on Ollie Lord last week. Tougher matchup this week with Peter Wright. So he won't be able to float off and intercept as much on him, but on big watch on Chom just for his defensive work. I think he's got it in him, and I think it's going to help him be a better defender. Nate Caddy, I think Cow Dawson probably gets that matchup. Athletic can go with him. Then the Langford one, and this is where I was sort of going on the core one because I don't have I'll look up his height here while I'm speaking, but he's he's like a really good hybrid third tall. Reminds me a bit of what Zane Dersma could be, but yeah, he's 192 Langford, so he would have been perfect for a core sort of matchup, but I think it's probably going to have to be Elmac. Like, I don't know who else in our back line. I think Jacko would give away too much height, so that's going to be a really big test for Elmac and how he can go on Langford, who is another one outside of last game who has been really difficult for us to match up on. So then looking at their smalls, they've got lots of sort of those zippy smalls. I think Jacko Archer probably goes to Isaac Kako, who's been a live wire for them. They've got Gresham. I could see a Hardiman matching up on him. And then Nick Martin, if he spends time in the forward line, I've got to be really wary of him because he is a really good link player for them, and he will spend time in the midfield as well with Shield missing. But yeah, it's really important. Archie Perkins is another one, sort of that medium-sized forward. So Jai Menzie, a Tassie boy, another one. So I don't think they've got any star small forwards, sorry. But then again, we've been leaking goals like a sieve. So it goes back to my original point, of we've got to start it in the midfield and gain ascendancy there. Right, so having a look at the forward line matchups. So Big Reed, I think he'll probably go to Finnbar now, which means Mackay to Larkey, which again goes to my midfield point because Ben Mackay, us Roos fans, watch him really closely when we're watching Bombers games because obviously a former player, left for the big money and has been horrifically out of form. And one thing that's really noticeable with Ben is if you get fast ball movement in, he gets lost so easily. And if we can lower our eyes and hit up Larky or Darling or whoever his direct matchup is, then there's serious chance to score that way. Then looking at their others, like Ridley probably matches up on JD. And then, outside of that, they've got like a McGrath that probably takes a Zerha, which bit of height difference there and definitely strength difference. So I don't think their backline... I think our backline's our worst line, the Bombers. So it's all going to stem down to the midfield battle, as I mentioned. So I think our forward line's been pretty solid this year. Like if you look at our scores per game, it's definitely up from last year. We're a lot more dynamic. Obviously, our most dynamic player, Paul Curtis, won't be there, but I like our forward line mix. I worry that we've brought in a tall for a small, that the pressure might not be there, but that's where your JDs, particularly Cam Zerhas, they've got to lift their intensity around the footy. So really looking forward to seeing if the boys respond. It's been a big week. As a supporter group, we've been deflated with the Curtis situation, frustrated with the Corn stuff, and then again deflated with the news of Georgie Wardlaw missing. But then it's always exciting to watch a debutant play his first game, and he's a lovable character, Big Finnbar. And if you haven't had time yet to catch the stuff the club's put up, it's really good. He has a really raw chat with his parents, which I enjoyed, and then got a bit emotional when he got informed about his debut as well. So really looking forward to see him go. Right, let's get to Baz's big call. So this week, it's pretty simple. North win. Now, is that a big call? Seeing we've won 16 games in 6 years, I'm going to say yes. And I'm tipping us again, which I swore to myself after the Carlton Good Friday debacle I wouldn't do. But the pressure cooker's right on the club. And if there's ever a time to stand up, it's this week. So I think we win, and a little sneaky call as well. I think Constanti kicks a goal with 2 minutes to go just to seal it, and gives a big shush to the crowd as well. The shush man, little JK. So bit of a gag in there to finish. But I think the big call is that we win. I think we win by 14 points. And it's going to be a big night for the club if we do that. Obviously, with the rivalry of Essendon, some of the footage during the week was fantastic to see. Highlights from the 80s and 90s. Bet you those guys are glad they don't play in today's game, because you wouldn't be wanting Byron Pickett or Glenn Archer to be your favourite player, because you'd watch them round one and then that'd be it. So good honest football though, good hits and the toughness, and I understand protecting the head as well. For those who might be screaming at me, we've got to worry about the head. Yes, I agree, but for deliberate actions, and I don't think PC could have done much else, to be honest. So right, this is episode 109, so solo pick for the favourite player to wear the number 9 Guernsey. Some contenders, LDU, obviously the current one, but my favourite number 9 in my time, a big shout out to Jess Sinclair as well. I really loved watching him, and the long surfer hair definitely caught my eye as a young fella watching the Roos in the late 2000s and early 2010s. So I really enjoyed Jess, but my favourite to wear the number 9 was Andrew Swallow. He played 224 games for the Kangas, former captain, 3-time Sid Barker medalist, and I'd love to have him out there for what he couldn't do with foot speed and burst from the clearance. He really made up for in his toughness, and particularly remember that game against Adelaide where he had like 17 disposals and 7 clearances, I think, from memory in the first quarter, and he was an inspirational captain. Really enjoyed what he brought, and obviously now a member of our board, so great to see him still involved at the club. Right, so to round out today, we've got our tipping for round 8. So a big thank you once again to our second year sponsors, SC Rings, for jumping on and supporting a fan podcast again with a sponsorship for our tipping group. So I got 6 last week, which probably good for me the way I've been tipping this year. But last week we had Mark Loves Beer, who I met at the Barossa down at Lindock, I think that's what it's called. So shout out to you, Mark, and I know he's a regular listener, so congratulations for winning the round, and Bulls cooking still in front after last week. So, Thursday night footy, we've gone the Kangas. Really hope that my loyalty to tipping them has paid off again. Friday night, St Kilda versus Freo. Bit of an interesting one, this one. I've gone the Dockers. I just don't rate St Kilda. It's as simple as that. Saturday, the Doggies to beat the Power. I think Adelaide will beat Carlton at home. Collingwood and Geelong, I think Collingwood win that one. And Melbourne beat the Eagles in Perth. Some sneaky good games on Sunday. I always enjoy watching the Battle of the Bridge, the two Sydney teams. I think the Giants get that done. Big watch on Sydney for the fraud list. Hawthorn and Richmond will be a snooze fest. The Hawks will get that done. And then the Q Clash, which is probably the biggest one in its history, Sunday night. And I am going to put the little asterisk that I'll wait for the teams, but I think the Suns, in an upset, will get the job done against the Lions. I think they've been a little bit shaky and sort of just doing enough to get the wins the last couple of weeks, probably the season to be fair. So I think Dimmer will have the Suns fired up and looking for a statement win. So that is what I'm going with. Before I finish up, I just wanted to have a quick chat about Ross Lyon's press conference, if anyone saw it today, with his thoughts around the Alex Tarou, the Flying Viking, who a lot of North fans really became a fan of, as it looked like we might potentially steal him in the draft, but his suspension, and had some really strong thoughts in his presser, comparing it to the Noah Bolter 4 weeks as well, because with the scheduling of the VFL, I think Tarou missed 6, so I liked it, and like it's times like this where you hope your club will be strong in comments like that. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of chatter around the Paul Curtis one from the club, but very disappointing that he is going to miss, and obviously been our most prolific forward and probably our best player this year. I think he's, if not the best player for us this year, then he's definitely in the top 3. But he'll be sorely missed, but it's an opportunity for a big Finnbar to come in, crash and bash. We know he won't get outmarked, so big test, big night for the club, really. In the spotlight all week in the media, lots of strong thoughts from Kane, as always, and a really important night for the club because, like I've said at multiple times, I don't think Essendon are great. I think they've got a lot of areas to be exploited on each line. I think it's a really important night for the club to stand up and make a statement and win a big Thursday night clash. I think it's our first Thursday night game since 2016. So with the spotlight on North, the whole footy world watching, let's hope we can get a win. To everyone going, enjoy the night. I know Frog will be there cheering loud and proud. So to him, enjoy. Thanks again for all your support. It's been a big week in the footy world for us North fans, so appreciate everyone reaching out, sending messages, just having good footy chat, and that's what this podcast is all about. Keen to hear your guys' thoughts. Post them in whatever listening platform you're on. If you're on Spotify, put it in the comments. YouTube, the same thing, and please subscribe. But to close out the show, I wanted to give a shout out to Ads in Oz on Apple Podcasts, who left a review saying, "Big fan of the Shimboners pod. They do a great job and bleed blue and white. Thanks for your efforts, lads, and for keeping our spirits up." Thank you, guys. I love doing this pod. It's one of the highlights of the week, and bringing that sort of realistic positivity without going over the top either way in what is a challenging time for the club, but a period that we'll look back and remember with a smile on our face how difficult it was when we were celebrating our 3rd flag in the era. So really looking forward to chatting to you guys. We'll be back Saturday to review tomorrow night's game. When the Frog's back, he'll be back to join me. Thanks again for your support. Please like, subscribe. Until next time, Gurus!
Good old North Melbourne, the champions you'll agree. North Melbourne is the team that plays to win.